If it doesn't work the first time, don't stress, don't stress.
Building a bar table.
Don't guess, cause we're
So in this video, I'll be showing you how I built my bar table. And I actually first had the idea when I was shopping at Living Spaces, and I came across this table and I thought it actually looked pretty good. And it seemed like a good piece to have in the house until I looked at the price tag.
$1,300 right there. Come on.
I'll try to build something better at a lower price, and that's what I did. So I wanted to talk about the table frame, and I used very thick 4x4 pieces of wood. And the tricky thing about using 4x4 pieces of wood is that you can't put one on top of the other conventionally and screw them together. The pieces are just way too thick. And so that brought me to the exciting world of wood joints. And there are so many types of wood joints out there, and this is my first project doing it, so I used the cross lap, half lap, and mitered half lap joints. And on a side note, I honestly don't try to stage my shots that much, and my floor is actually pretty dirty. But this is an example of a cross lap joint and a mitered half lap joint, which I thought looked the coolest. Alright, so the first step was cutting the tabletop, which I used 2x6 Douglas fir wood. All of my wood I get from Home Depot. Then I cut the 4x4 pieces for the table frame. And I learned a method of cutting these lap joints from a YouTube video where they use a miter saw. Traditionally, I think it's actually used with a table saw, but I used the wood block to stop the saw blade halfway through the 4x4 piece. And then I started just hacking away at the piece, doing it section by section. And this is the end result, which I thought looked pretty cool for the mitered half lap joint. Then the next part was making a slot for the cross lap joint, and I did it by using the same technique. And this is for the bottom piece that fit between the two legs of the table. Once I cut out the pieces, I put them all together and then sanded it down. For the legs of the table, I had these leftover 3.5-inch lag screws that I actually had from a previous project, and they're really thick and really sturdy and much bigger than just the traditional screws that I typically use. After piecing together the table legs, I moved on to making the countertop. I screwed in pilot holes through the bottom of the countertop, and I don't know if I invented this technique, but I step on the jig and just make the pilot holes all throughout the bottom, and it just makes it way more easy and efficient than clamping down the jig each and every time. I did still have to use clamps for the sides of the table to keep it even, and once I finished, I moved on to painting the table legs white. And I really like the idea of just high contrast between the white table legs and the wooden countertop. And I actually had to use 2 coats of white to make it even more bright. And then after that, I made pilot holes for the table frame to fit on the bottom of the tabletop. I sanded it down, and I don't know what I was doing here, but just contemplating life. I stained it using a golden pecan stain, and I waterproofed it using a satin finish to give it a smooth look and not too glossy. And I did the same exact thing for the footrest of the table, just staining it and waterproofing it. Then I put it all together, and it was really challenging trying to get the pieces to be all snug. I used clamps and had to position the table and my body in awkward positions to really just get it as snug as possible. And even then, it wasn't as tight as I wanted it. Honestly, just with my tabletop, it's not perfectly level, and I think that throws off some of the pieces, and I don't have a planer to make that even. So I had to use brackets to really secure the table legs, and even for the inside of the table frame I had to use brackets. And lastly, I installed the part of the table frame where I put the footrest on and just screwed it into that bottom piece. The table was still wobbly, and I had to add in these wooden bracings, which were a game changer for table stability, and I kept them the natural wood color, which I thought looked pretty cool. I bought my chairs from Home Depot, and I had to test them out to make sure that my legs fit underneath even with the footrest, and just testing out the chairs to make sure that it fits all my postural needs. And that is how I built my bar table. And yes, how much did it all cost? Well, here's a breakdown of all the materials that I bought and it gets a little bit tricky because of the miscellaneous materials like the stain and wood finish that I had from before. But with all of that, that brings me to a grand total of $106.
$106? I love a man on a budget.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for watching. Don't mind the dirty floor. Give it a thumbs up if you like. Subscribe if you want to see new content. And we'll see you next time.
If it doesn't work the first time, don't stress, don't stress. If it doesn't make you feel right.